My name is Margaret. At 53, I thought I knew what life had in store for me. I had raised my daughter, Anna, and was looking forward to the quiet joys of being a grandmother. But my world shattered in an instant. The news came like a physical blow, a tragic plane crash, and Anna was gone. The grief was a bottomless pit, a void where my heart used to be. My son-in-law, Mark, stood beside me at the funeral, his face a mask of sorrow. Or so I thought. Just weeks later, that mask crumbled. Mark packed a bag and walked out, not just on the memory of my daughter, but on their 3-year-old son, Ethan. He left with another woman without a single look back. And just like that, at an age when my friends were planning retirement cruises, I found myself a mother all over again. I was now raising my grandson. We stayed in a small, modest house that had been Anna's. It was all we had, a place filled with her ghost and our shared sorrow. I filled it with as much love as I could muster, determined to shield Ethan from the gaping hole his parents had left. Life became a relentless hustle. I wasn't young anymore, but I found a strength I never knew I had. I took any job I could get. I cleaned offices late into the night, the smell of disinfectant clinging to my clothes. On weekends, my kitchen would fill with the scent of baking as I prepared cakes and pies to sell at the local market. Every penny I earned was for Ethan. It was for his school supplies, his worn-out shoes, his occasional trip for ice cream. I wanted to give him a childhood defined by love, not by loss. My back ached constantly, and sleep was a luxury, but seeing Ethan smile, hearing his laughter echo through Anna's old house, that was my fuel. The years rolled by, one blending into the next. Ethan grew from a bewildered toddler into a bright, kind-hearted boy, and then a thoughtful teenager. He was the spitting image of his mother, with her gentle eyes and warm smile. We were a team, him and I. Eventually we saved enough to move to a small new house in a better neighborhood. It wasn't much, but it was ours, a fresh start. Anna's old home, the place where we'd weathered the worst of our storm, was left behind. It sat empty, its paint peeling, the garden overgrown. The memories were too heavy, and the repairs were a mountain I couldn't afford to climb. It became a forgotten chapter, a silent monument to our past. Then one ordinary Tuesday afternoon, the phone rang. It was my old neighbor, Martha. Her voice was breathless, urgent. "Margaret, you are not going to believe this," she stammered. "It's Mark. He's here at Anna's old place. He just pulled up in a fancy car." My heart hammered against my ribs. "Mark? After all this time?" Martha continued, her voice a mix of shock and outrage. "He looked completely stunned when he saw the state of the house. He was pacing back and forth, demanding to know where you and Ethan went. He kept saying he had to see his son, that it was urgent." A cold dread washed over me. Why now? After 15 years of silence, what could he possibly want? That evening, as I was washing the dinner dishes, a pair of headlights sliced through the darkness of our quiet street, sweeping across my kitchen window. I knew with a sinking feeling who it was before the car even stopped. A sleek, expensive car pulled into my driveway. The door opened and Mark stepped out. He was older, of course, dressed in a sharp suit that screamed money, but it was him. He strode towards the front door, his steps confident. Just then, Ethan, now a tall 18-year-old, came out to see what the commotion was. Mark's face lit up, a practiced, charming smile spreading across his lips. "Ethan's son!" he exclaimed, rushing forward and pulling Ethan into a hug. Ethan froze in his arms, his body stiff with confusion and shock. This man was a stranger, a face from a faded photograph. This was the father who had vanished from his life. "Oh, son, I've missed you so much," Mark said, his voice thick with a warmth that didn't quite reach his eyes. There was a cold, calculating glint in them that sent a shiver down my spine. For a fleeting, foolish moment, a part of me hoped that he had come back to apologize, to atone, to finally be the father Ethan deserved. I watched from the doorway, my heart a tangled mess of old wounds and fragile hope. But then, as Mark released Ethan from the awkward embrace, something slipped from the inside pocket of his expensive jacket. A thick, official-looking envelope fluttered to the ground, landing right at Ethan's feet. Mark didn't seem to notice. Ethan, however, bent down and picked it up. He glanced at the front, and his eyes widened. His own name was written across it in bold, formal letters. My breath caught in my throat. What was this? Ethan's fingers trembled slightly as he tore open the seal. He pulled out the documents inside and began to read. I watched his face, saw the confusion morph into disbelief, and then into a look of pure, gut-wrenching betrayal. He gasped, looking from the papers to the man who called himself his father. Inside that envelope was the truth. It wasn't a letter of apology or a long-lost birthday card. It was the real ugly reason for Mark's sudden return. The papers were from a lawyer. They were legal documents concerning the land where Anna's old, dilapidated house stood. It turned out a huge development company wanted to buy the entire block for a new luxury condominium project. The offers were astronomical. And since Anna had passed away without a will, ownership of the property was complicated. As her surviving spouse, Mark had a claim, but as her child who had lived there, so did Ethan. The document was a contract. Mark wasn't there to reconnect with his son. He was there to get Ethan to sign away his rights to the land, offering him a paltry sum in exchange for a multi-million-dollar inheritance. His urgent need to see his son was nothing but greed. Ethan looked up from the papers, his young face pale with disgust. He held the contract out. Is this why you're here? He asked, his voice shaking with a quiet fury that was far more potent than shouting. After 15 years, you show up not to see me, but to get me to sign this. Mark's charming facade finally cracked. He stammered, Son, it's not like that. This is a great opportunity for us. For you. For us. I finally spoke, stepping onto the porch, my voice as cold as ice. There hasn't been an us for 15 years, Mark. You abandoned him. You left him with nothing. I raised him. I worked my fingers to the bone for him while you were off living your life. Ethan looked at Mark, then at me. He walked over to my side, standing tall. He tore the contract in half, then in half again, and let the pieces fall from his hand like confetti of betrayal. My mother's home isn't for sale, Ethan said, his voice steady now. And neither am I. You are my father. You're just a man who shares my DNA. My family is right here. He put his arm around my shoulders. Mark stood there, stunned into silence, the pieces of his scheme scattered at his feet. He looked from Ethan's resolute face to mine, and for the first time he seemed to see us not as a means to an end, but as two people he had wronged beyond repair. Without another word, he turned, got back in his fancy car, and drove away, disappearing into the night just as he had all those years ago. We stood there on our porch watching him go. The past had returned, but this time it didn't break us. It only made us stronger. Thank you so much for watching our story today. If it moved you, please give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more content that touches the heart. We'll see you in the next one.